All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on another edition of Extreme Health Radio. We're really excited this post-election day. It is Wednesday, November 7th, 2012. So thank you for joining us. And thank you to Mike Adams from naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his network. And currently we're doing about 3 shows a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So stay tuned for those. This is episode number 32. So you could find this show at extremehealthradio.com/32. And on that show page, you'll find the transcription, the show notes, anything that Anthony mentions. If you have a question for Anthony or for me, myself, you could just email me at justin@extremehealthradio.com, or you could call our voicemail line, which is 949-391-7363. And I just want to let you know this show is brought to you by the Vitamix Blender, which is my favorite blender on the market today. It's a great machine. If you buy it through us, you'll get free shipping, and it's all good. And you can check that out at extremehealthradio.com/Vitamix. And before I introduce Anthony Anderson, I would like to just tell you a little bit about our upcoming show schedule. We've got lots of great guests. We're booked all the way through the end of the year. On Friday, we've got Dr. Ken Sutter, who does a lot of work with healing cancer and degenerative diseases by cleansing the liver. So he'll be talking a lot about that one. Then we've got on Monday, Dr. Renee Toko, who is a doctor that works with a lot of children and primarily with vaccinations and getting the flu shots and educating people about the dangers of those. And then in a week from today, we've got our man, David Wolf. He will be talking about raw food and his business and what he's up to. He's a wild guy, so that'll be a fun show with David Wolf. But today we've got Anthony Anderson, who is an expert in permaculture, and he'll be talking to us about his latest project called Grow Paradise. And he's got a website called rawmodel.com as well as growparadise.com. So thanks, Anthony, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Justin. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've been involved in raw food and health for quite some time.
It's been a funny journey for me because I ended up getting kind of conscious about food mostly through the vegetarian world. I started reading, I'm 31 now, so I started reading some environmental books when I was finishing up university, so around 22, 23. And it really started waking me up to the factory farm model and not wanting to be a part of that problem and thinking about all the pesticides and stuff in the animals. And it made me a vegetarian and then a vegan pretty quickly. But I was still eating a lot of grains and a lot of processed food, so I wasn't experiencing the real benefits yet. And then when I moved to New York, I wanted to take it really seriously, so I somehow found a book about raw food, and it was an old book, like written in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. By 2 English women, a mom and daughter. I think their last name was Kent. It's something like Raw Energy was the book. And it made perfect sense. I was thinking about all the wild animals eating raw food and really just it really rang true. And I was a vegan at the time, so that it was really in line with what I was feeling. So I experimented with it, and I really had some amazing benefits that I didn't even expect. I was just trying to lean up for modeling. And I started needing less sleep, just feeling super vibrant, super happy. It was amazing what it did to the emotions. And I was kind of convinced that it was the way people should be eating. So I kind of became like this evangelical figure trying to get people into raw food, like raw veganism especially. And I realized that it might not be the best possible diet for someone at a certain point in their life. Who knows? And I thought it might be a little divisive in a way. I wanted to maybe talk about something that could be more inclusive for everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's really where the permaculture came in. Through the healthy food and the raw food and the superfoods, I got into growing my own food, and then basically just designing a lifestyle that took care of itself, where the fruit, you have a living grocery store in your backyard. So your food bills are totally slashed. You have solar panels, or all you design your house appropriately so the heating bill and the electricity is super low. And then if you want to continue to work, you can use your money for trips or charity work or whatever you choose. It doesn't have to go towards the needs of life. And I thought that maybe talking about that idea might be a little more inclusive for everyone.
Yeah, I like that approach because it doesn't cut out people. It's not eating 30 bananas a day, or it's not, eating primarily just fruit, and you're just excluding all of these people. But it's such a great approach, isn't it, to include everyone? Because everyone, no matter what their diet, whether they eat meat or anything else, is going to be wanting to grow, their own food.
Right. And I think if we just get on the train on the same time with chemical-free food, food grown in polycultures, so foods grown near other foods, not just like these big monocultures of organic tomatoes. It would be tomatoes that are mixed in with fruit trees and lettuce and basil, and those kind of foods are much different. And if we just start purchasing those foods, let alone growing those foods, we can totally change our communities. And I think then it will take on more of a national role. I think mostly because the farmers that are doing it will realize that it's a lot less work and people are willing to pay more money for it. So it's just going to be the most common food that we see at the grocery stores, maybe in 10, 15 years. Who knows?
Wouldn't that be nice? So you have a food forest that you grew. We'll talk about what food forests are, but you started a food forest in Minnesota and in Arizona, and I think somewhere on the West Coast. Is that right?
I was flown out to Laguna, the Laguna Beach area. It was July of 2011. And I did a backyard food forest for at first a client, but then a friend of mine. We became really good friends, and he really saw the vision, and he wanted to make his backyard just like a paradise garden full of fig trees and citrus and apples and all this kind of stuff. So we did that, and my first one, was in Minnesota. And the reason why I chose Minnesota is because my parents live there, and I wanted to establish a long-term food supply that they can enjoy in their retirement ages, because I don't see them moving from the house that they're living at. I think they're pretty well situated. Mm-hmm. They both work, and they have their lives very well situated at that spot. So I thought, if at all possible, get something established there, because who knows what gasoline is going to cost in 10 or 5 years, or the cost of food. And they're 55, getting close to 60. So I'm thinking now's really the time for people to start planning, whether they're parents planning for their kids or kids planning for their retired parents. Mm-hmm. It's like to not be doing that right now seems to almost be a little reckless, because I think there's so many signs, both positive and negative, pointing at why we should be doing this kind of lifestyle. And it just seems like the most self-serving, rational thing to be doing at this point. Right.
I totally agree. So as far as growing your own food on your own property, now people can do this whether they have a big backyard or small little kitchen gardens, right?
Yeah, it can go from the kitchen gardens in the kitchen window, or we can get to, other people will grow things in closets, but you could have an LED setup in your closet growing basil and really whatever. You could be starting tree seedlings in your apartment and then planting them out next spring. So wherever you live, you can do it. I mean, even just making fermented vegetables in your house is a really cool step, and starting sprouts and even just kind of buying seeds in bulk and giving them to your friends. Or what I recommend is to see your neighborhood as your garden, and start to maybe sprinkle some like arugula seeds and dandelion seeds and burdock and nettles, all kinds of stuff that can grow really well without a lot of human babysitting. And then pretty soon, your whole neighborhood becomes an edible landscape. So there's so many things that you can do, but if you do have the backyard, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Right. So how did you get into, because I've, been following, sounds like you and I have similar stories, mm-hmm. Minus my modeling career that never existed. But so what got you interested? Because you sound like you have one foot planted in sort of that world, and then another foot planted in sort of a completely different world, which is more, living sustainably and living off the land more. And so how did you, first of all, get started doing this, or just having that open mindset? And then how do you manage both of those worlds?
I'm trying to think like what came first, but I think just the opening up to my parents were very, especially my mom, very open-minded about civil rights for all, sexual orientation or black and white, like very, very forward thinking about that, and brought my dad into that as well. And so growing up like that, I was always open, and she questioned religion and all that stuff. So I was always kind of open to possibilities. And then once I finished up school, it was like I was so distracted with the work, school, study, TV kind of routine up until the age of maybe 22 that I didn't even really have time to think about the deeper issues. I was just trying to stay above water and get the grades and finish up. You know, it was always kind of an assumption that I would go to college and just do the 4 years and see what happens, you know. But so I did it, and then once I finished, then one of the big wake-ups was I saw Bowling for Columbine with Michael Moore with some buddies. We went to a bar, and then Bowling for Columbine was playing next door. So we went over there, and probably 22 years old, and saw it. And it was like a big wake up call for me, you know, in a way, you know. I mean, I've gone from that, but it was kind of like the first thing. And thinking about like Native American rights and just something might not be right in the whole thing. And then once I got into like the raw food and the vegetarianism, it just went from there. And then it just made perfect sense. And God bless the internet, I was exposed to so many good ideas, and staying up late and just, you know, going on YouTube and watching stuff. And I saw some amazing permaculture video about a guy in Australia named Joshua Byrne. And I think it's, you can find this on YouTube still. It's the Australian Broadcasting Channel, ABC. They did a garden special, and this guy, it's like a 1 hour thing, and he did over a 2 year period, he totally permacultured out a small suburban home in Perth in Australia. And it just made perfect sense to me. And even as I was kind of maybe like 24, 25, I was living on the road as a model. Which just kind of happened randomly. Some people suggested it, and I pursued it a little bit, and it was kind of an excuse for me to travel. And I didn't have a lot of success right away until I got more into the living foods and exercising. And that's really when I started working more. And actually, the raw food just kind of changes your whole perspective on life. Like, you're just more happy when you're eating clean foods. I went from like processed food to basically like a raw vegan diet. So it went pretty clean. And you feel just totally different, you know, like you're on your path, you're on your mission. And I was exposed to all the great ideas, and what this guy did in Australia, it made perfect sense. So I thought, let's design a lifestyle. This is what every young person could do. Let's design a lifestyle where everything is taken care of. You know, let's consciously create our habitat to take care of all the needs of life. So then if we want to work for money, we can if we want to, but we really don't have to, because everything else is basically taken care of. And if like a group of people can do that, I mean, well, think of the possibilities. So for me, it was also more of a freedom thing. It was a healthy food thing, but it was also like a freedom from, you know, the system in a way, like not having to pay all the fines of life that people get stuck with.
Yeah, because growing your own food, I mean, so much money is spent each month on buying food at the grocery store, when a significant portion of that could just be used for themselves, you know, to eat and to replant and just save tons of money every month.
Oh, I mean, you can find a nice sized fruit tree on sale in the month of August for probably $30 or $20. That's maybe already 4 years old, and it's just within 2 years you're getting probably $100 worth of apples, and then you just keep going, and then it's like $1,000 worth of apples, and maybe even $2,000 if you're selling them at the farmers market for, you know, biodynamic, never sprayed apples. People might be spending $2.50, $3 a pound for those apples. So now this one tree is making a family maybe $4,000. I mean, it's really astounding that more people don't do it. And I look at our older generation, kind of like our parents and our grandparents, and it seems like there's just this never-ending struggle with bills and, you know, hoping that they have enough money for retirement, and then they get sick and they're paying all this money for pills, and I'm surprised they didn't figure out a better way sooner. You know, they seem like intelligent people that come up with good ideas, but they are still kind of stuck in that treadmill. And I think permaculture, the paradise lifestyle, is a really good key to step off of that train and then just do whatever we feel like.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, a while back I was with my wife driving to the Lake Hemet Spring, getting some spring water, and we had to drive through Hemet. on the way back. Along the sidewalk, it blew me away. Along the sidewalk, there were fruit trees. And I saw a homeless guy. And a couple minutes later, I saw a bunch of these fruit trees. And I just thought, wow, why don't we have fruit trees just growing everywhere? They would just be watered just like every other tree, but people would have food. Just, people that were homeless, they would never be without food.
Yeah. Yeah, I always wondered why cities didn't do that. I think it might have been a vermin issue, because it's funny, like a lot of people don't value fruit. They don't want to eat it. And they so many times when I was living in Phoenix, I lived in Phoenix for about a year and a half back in 2010, 2011. It's one of the best urban foraging cities I've ever been to, because it used to be a really well-known citrus orchard area. And there's a lot of olives there as well, and prickly pear cats. I've never seen anyone else picking anything. And there was just grapefruits rotting on people's yards, so people don't really value it as much as I think we forget how different we are sometimes. And how it's like our circle, it's common to want to go and like pick fruit from a wild place or go to a spring but wow, we're in such a small minority, even though it makes perfect sense. And it's like the most fun thing, and it's healthy food. And it's really like one of the best hobbies a family could ever have together. But it's rare, so I think it's kind of up to us to make it look good, and show the virtues.
We are with Anthony Anderson. His website is growparadise.com as well as rawmodel.com. And we'll have all those linked up on this show page, extremehealthradio.com/32. And we'll have his Facebook account. And I highly suggest you follow him on Facebook and all of that. We'll be right back, Anthony. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. If you have been trying to grow your own food for a while, I would highly suggest checking out a DVD. It's a 2-disc DVD by Marjorie Wildcraft called Grow Your Own Groceries. And you can check it out at extremehealthradio.com/groceries. And if you have a black thumb like I used to have, you definitely will not after watching and going through her course. It's, like I said, 2 discs. And growing your own food is, I think, a critical thing for a couple of reasons. One is, even if it's organic food that you're buying, you don't know how long ago that food was picked. And we all know that as soon as a food is picked, it starts losing immediately its phytonutrients, its enzymes, and its minerals. So having fresh food is critical for your health. Also, you don't know if organic food has been watered with conventional city water that contain lots of contaminants and high calcium levels. So organic food, although it's really great, is not optimal. The other reason to grow your own food is you just don't want to rely too heavily on the grid, because you'd never know what's going to happen with our uncertain economy and our unstable grid and structure of our society. So growing your own food just a little bit will help you tremendously with your health and reconnecting with the cycle of life. And you can check out this DVD by Marjorie Wildcraft. I highly recommend it. It's really, really a great product. So it's great to have on hand. She teaches you everything you need to know about growing your own food from A to Z. It's really a great product. So check it out at extremehealthradio.com/groceries. All right, we are back with Anthony Anderson, the Raw Model, and growparadise.com. And Anthony, recently, or just actually yesterday, the old Prop 37 here in California just got defeated, which means that all of the labeling doesn't have to be applied to our food. And that, to me, seems like one more good reason to grow some of your own food.
Yeah. It's the cool thing. I really thought, I was really thinking that it was going to pass, but I realized at least so many people got the wake-up call about GMOs, and then they probably started going online and they saw the rat tumors and they see the sterility issues. So I think tons of people got woken up about GMOs, and now they're just going to avoid that stuff. And I think pretty soon people just are, I don't know. I mean, whoever's going to keep eating it, I guess they're going to keep eating it. Hopefully we can get as many people awake about that to get them off of that stuff. But, for me, I just don't even buy stuff hardly in packages anymore, and you and then you just get to the level where all your food, a large portion is just coming from your house or your friends, or you go and you wild forage, or you end up buying like half a side of grass-fed beef and it's in your freezer and that's what you live off of. And, so your whole lifestyle changes. And I really wish it would have got passed, because it really would have thrown a wrench in their whole situation. But at least a ton of people got woken up about GMOs. So
Right. Yeah. And when I realized, because in my world and in your world, I'm just bombarded with anti-GMO stuff, all day long, and which is great. Yeah. And so I was thinking in my mind, there's no way this isn't going to pass, right? But then when you realize that companies like Pepsi and Monsanto, have the kind of budget they have, it's going to be a little bit more than, than
but they can't beat it though, because this is the thing. They convinced people because they thought it was going to be like a bureaucratic nightmare, and all these poor farmers who are just spraying the heavens out of the soil and just really trashing, but it makes it look like they're, poor guy, with his pitchfork and stuff. But they still said, well, why do these people want GMOs labeled? So they got the message about it being a nightmare for bureaucracy, and they thought that they could have to pay more because people are very cost conscious. They'd rather be in a hospital by the time they're 50 than eat healthy food and spend an extra $20 a week. But they got the thing, like, why are people wanting this whole GMO thing labeled? So then they go online. So I think it's on a slippery slope now. They know that their days are numbered, but we know what's up. Our families were taking care of everyone, our communities. And now it's just expanding. So I think it's a good time for everyone. I think compared to 10 years ago, people are waking up crazy fast. Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy. Today was a good day. I think in a way, I know the whole presidential election thing is kind of a funny show and stuff. And I'm interested to see if maybe if Obama has more guts this time, if he actually doesn't. I don't know. I kind of think it's all a charade at this point, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll see.
Yeah, I know the voting thing is a real touchy subject with a lot of people, and I personally did not vote. This was the first year I did not vote, but I consider myself a person who votes every single day. I vote, and so do you with, how you spend your money, right?
Right. We have to realize that they're not even really relevant if we don't let them be. I mean, we create our own reality. We create our own communities where they don't even exist. Like, they can try and put rules on people and control. And I honestly feel sorry for those people because they're just so obsessed with control and order and money. And it's almost like they're really like slaves. They're slaves to that ideology, and people can unplug from that whenever they want to. So we'll see where it goes.
Right. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, the president really the federal president, has no jurisdiction over my life and anything that I do. So, voting for the president is really, to me, kind of a meaningless thing. But so I wanted to ask you about your vision of paradise. Talk about a little bit about, if you were to set up what you have, just your own personal house, where it would be and what you would do, and just kind of dream like that. What would that look like?
I would like to see where you could almost fly over these properties, and you basically just see forest, but underneath are cottages, maybe a 2-bedroom cottage here, 2-bedroom cottage there. And it's just interwoven with pathways. So one family lives, and, we can divide it by acreage. Maybe each family has 2 acres or 3 acres, and they have some open area for, their goats or pasture or whatever, or, their yard to play or a pond and stuff. But overall, flying through, you don't even see anything. And people are just living off of the good life. It's almost like it seems like it's too easy, or like it would be boring because it's too easy. But I see fruit trees everywhere. I see abundant food. I see people just not getting sick and being totally happy because they're eating the right foods, and their brain is happy, and the nutrition's good, and good people are around them, and it just builds on itself. And now I think with the green construction, and I would honestly, the best thing that I could imagine is that we take a field that was once used for a cornfield, and we start putting modular homes, almost like you could do those ones made out of shipping containers, but make them look nice and start to cover them with vines, and then just start planting edible hedges in between all these houses, and then trees, like fast-growing nitrogen-fixing trees, and then start plugging in the fruit trees. And before you know it, you have an eco-village producing so much more food, and actually like good food for people, and you're giving homes to maybe like thousands and tens of thousands of people, and it was once just a huge cornfield or like a massive wheat field up in Canada or something. As far as getting into the like the basics of how the kids would be educated. I'm really a fan of homeschooling and even unschooling. I think the whole way it's set up, I mean, they put so much focus on these in a way. I think it's so menial, just very like thinking now. How much mathematics, hardcore mathematics, do the average citizen, do we really need every day? Not too much, and I spent, from age 15 to 18 doing a lot of that stuff and really like stressing out my whole life, trying to do stuff like that, and I wonder what I could have been creating otherwise as like a young boy, creative, wanting to explore. And I just think they're really keeping us very occupied. Mm-hmm. So what can be achieved if we let these kids really blossom and encourage them, when they show an interest in something, encourage them and not maybe coddle them too much, make them learn, but really instill that passion for learning, or not even instill it, but just maintain it, because I think it's always been there. It just gets squashed out by age 7, 8, 9. I mean,
right.
Yeah. Right. My vision paradise, it's the food forest. It's the food forest with, the eco village. The houses are built with really thick walls for thermal mass, and I really got into this thing called a rocket mass heater, which is it's a wood burning stove, but it takes the heat and you travel through these long pipes, and those pipes will warm up a seat, and the heat will be, and all that comes out at the end of the pipe is steam. Just it's amazing. It's amazing. A rocket mass heater. Mm-hmm. And just thinking about all these things. So really we can start growing trees that are especially good for firewood, like the black locust. It's a really good firewood tree, and it grows extremely fast. And if you cut it down from the trunk, all of these shoots will start shooting up. And if you give it about a year or two, they're probably 2 or 3 inches in diameter, and it's basically a firewood tree. So if you're thinking about it, in a way, it's almost like free energy. You're heating your home for free. And even just if you have a place like that, you have so much downed firewood, and it's endless. I've got 2 acres in Minnesota it's across the road from my parents' property. My uncle bought this piece of land so that my dad would never have any neighbors. And then they agreed that if they ever sold it, they would sell it together. And then I was going to do this project in Woodstock, New York. I bought some land there. I bought 5 acres there, and I was going to do this big food forest, and I still have the property, and I was actually trying to sell it. And I realized, I went there in August, and I realized just how magical it was. So I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to do something with it and preserve it, because it's super pristine. But this spot in Minnesota, I've got 2 acres, and my parents across the road have 2.5, and it's on a dead end. And a lot of it is there's a lot of ditch as well, so it's like grassy ditch. But in my side, I planted clover. So it feeds the bees, and it really fixes nitrogen into the soil, and I don't have to mow it. And my whole system is set up for very low maintenance, and it feeds itself. It takes care of itself. It's designed to be like nature, where the fertilizer is coming from the property. I've imported wood chips and fertilizer, like as far as manure and stuff, but now I'm really trying to keep it just to wood chips. I'm just trying to bring wood chips in. And then it feeds itself. The leaves drop every year. The nitrogen's in the soil. The worms just keep cycling everything. And I just keep adding wood chips. And it's really taking off. It's in year 5 now. I started in 2008. So, wow. And that was just me by myself. I've had a couple friends help me out. And my dad helps me with watering once in a while. But otherwise, it's a self-maintaining system. And it's really popped. By year 3, it really pops. So I'm thinking if a group of 3 or 4 young people, 5, 6, who knows, really go hardcore on it and buy some trees that have some good size and do the earthworks, build the ponds right away and build the swales to catch the water, the place could be popping in a year. I mean, really, really fast.
Wow.
Without a lot of money.
Wow. And so is that the whole idea of permaculture, where you have a sort of a self-sustaining cycle of components that go into it, and then it kind of just grows by itself? Is that kind of the idea of permaculture?
Yeah, permaculture is I guess the broader term, where it's a land lifestyle design system, which it means either permanent culture or permanent agriculture, and then the food forest is kind of a side branch of that, but it's a big role of that. But also in permaculture, we would have our gardens, we would have our kitchen gardens mixed in with our cucumbers and tomatoes and salad. So it would still be a little more conventional, but the thing that's really feeding itself is the food forest. Okay. And when we mix in those nitrogen fixers like the black locust and the sea buckthornberry, there's one called the Goumi bush, Goumi. It puts out a nice little red fruit, and it feeds nitrogen into the soil from the air, and it fixes it into the soil for the other plants to survive off of. So that eliminates our need to put more nitrogen on the soil, like most orchards have to, or there's so many ways that nature keeps the cycle going. So we just have to step back and see what she has figured out, because whatever is happening now is the best possible thing after, billions of years of fine tuning. So copying that model it makes it so easy. When we're trying to grow a field of soybeans, Mother Nature wants that field to be a tree, so she starts putting weeds there to build the soil, and then if we leave it alone, you'll start to see little trees, and then after maybe 20 years, 30 years, you see like a small kind of forest. And that's what Mother Nature wants to be. So why not just go with that flow and harvest food from 30 feet above, 50 feet above, a foot below? I mean, why label it to just one zone? I'm shocked that people still do it the way they do, but I think that big agriculture has such a strangle on most American farmers that they just don't know a better way. And they think big, they think the big fields and how, and they're not getting any money for their produce. But if they were to maybe produce 10% of that and sell it directly to the consumer, they would make just as much money, and they wouldn't have to spray anything. And the biodynamics, I'm not sure if anyone out there is familiar with biodynamics, but that was an organic method developed by Rudolf Steiner back in the early 1900s. He was a mystic, kind of a clairvoyant, but also a real thinker, and he's got a lot of amazing talks, and he developed biodynamics. And it was a system to replenish the soil so the farmers of Germany and Austria could survive. And then once the Green Revolution came and all the petrochemicals and those fertilizers were injected, the soil acted as like a dry, lifeless sponge that would just hold these chemicals. And then the plant would feed off of it, they'd harvest it, do it again. So that's kind of what saved, in a way. I mean, if that didn't happen, I wonder what our population would be right now, because that allowed a lot more people to survive on the planet, living that fossilized sunshine. I mean, that's really all it is. It's all that condensed sunlight used to fertilize these plants. So really, if we can just get into a more quicker cycle using biomass and compost and all that stuff, mulch, we're using that condensed sunlight, but it's only maybe 1 year old or 2 months old instead of 50 million years old.
Wow.
And we can control it, and it's free. I mean, really, it's where we have control back, and really, because it's all about freedom and it's all about being healthy.
Right. So now you advocate people grow their own food and they actually take care of the soil. Isn't it true that you don't really need to spray your crop with pesticides and herbicides, right? Because that's just sort of like a crutch if you don't take care of the soil?
Yeah, well, if the soil is weak, the plants will be weak. I mean, if the soil activity is low, the plants aren't absorbing the right minerals, and it's just like us. When we're not firing on full nutrition, we're susceptible to the things that come in the air, germs, and we're always exposed to germs and whatever, quote, bugs. But a lot of us in this circle, we have strong immune systems because we eat highly mineralized foods. We have a healthy gut flora, so it really protects us. And I think it's the same way with plants. And if we can give them the best nutrition possible, and also the thing is, it's funny because my apple don't have any little dimples in them from fruit flies. And I think the reason is because I have such a rich mix of plants where the fruit flies can't even really survive to live. I don't even have chickens right now, but I have so many wild animals and wild predator insects that I attract, and I really keep them there because I plant a lot of things that they enjoy, and they eat those other bugs. Like they eat the aphids, and they eat that Colorado potato beetle. The first year, I had a problem with Colorado potato beetles on my tomatillos, and I would just go around and squish them with my finger, and since then, I've never seen them because I think the ecosystem just doesn't allow for that explosion of pests.
Right. Wow. So what are some good ways that people at home could remineralize their soil? Like, what are your top ways to do that?
There's a great product called azomite. It's Utah volcanic rock dust, and it's AZOMIT, A to Z Minerals. And I've been using that for a long time, and my friend Jake of Raw Utah, also, he's from Utah, and he'll buy it in large garbage pails by the bulk. And you should see his fruit trees. I mean, he's in year 4, and wow, I mean, his trees are 15 feet tall, 20, I think his apple trees might even be 20 feet tall at the tips. I mean, it's volcanic soil, but he's adding all that volcanic azomite on top, and it just really adds a lot. So that's a big one. A huge one that anyone can do is add some sea salt to your water. And a good ratio of this is about maybe 1 tablespoon for 1 gallon or 4 liters. And it's just enough where it gives the minerals in a very diluted form to the soil, and then the plants can pick that up. We can always go directly to the ocean and dilute that with 10 parts fresh water to 1 part ocean water. And then it's that rich mix of ocean minerals and even ormus that gets into the soil. Ormus is I would just recommend looking that up on YouTube, David Wolf Ormus. You can ask David about this next week. I think some of his most captivating YouTube videos are about ormus, and ocean water plays a big part of that. So getting the ocean water minerals into the soil, the azomite is good, and then just making those awesome compost piles with local branches, local leaves. I would put some nettles in there. I would put some comfrey in there. If you don't have comfrey or nettles, you can go to a bulk herbalist online. Mountain Rose Herbs is a cool one, and you can buy a pound of nettle leaves and just make a tea, and then give that to your plants. But if you want to do a large-scale operation, I would grow some comfrey and grow some nettles. Russian comfrey is by far the best one to grow. You just get little root chunks of it, and then you can start a new one. If you know someone that grows it, ask for just a little root chunk, and then it'll start a whole new plant, and they grow. It's like a big, lush tropical plant, and it's a mineral accumulator, so the roots dive super deep into the soil and pull out, like a pump, all these minerals onto the top layer. And you can take those leaves and add them to your compost pile, and they just do amazing things.
Wow. So do you do worms in the compost or without worms?
Oh, no, worms. Yeah, worms also. Sometimes your compost pile can get too warm for the worms. But what it becomes really is your whole yard becomes the compost pile, where you can just do a worm tower. You stick like a big PVC tube, maybe 6 inches in diameter, into one of your garden beds, and then just drop all your veggie scraps and all your fruit scraps into that tunnel, and then drill some holes before you put the tube in, but drill some holes on the bottom, and then put a couple worms in there, and then they just go in and out of the holes, and then you just drop your compost in that tube. It's really an easy way to do it, but yeah, your whole yard becomes a compost pile. Wow. Some people just put their veggie scraps like underneath a little bit of mulch. I just added to kind of like a garbage pile in the back of my, kind of like behind my. I had these woodchucks. I get off on this subject, but I had these woodchucks living on my property in Minnesota. I made this huge brush pile, and I saw a woodchuck there one year, and I was like, oh yeah, very cute. I didn't want to shoot it. It was very peaceful, and it didn't seem to be doing any damage, just munching on clover. It seemed cool. The next year, she had 5 babies. I was like, oh man, this is crazy. And so I was just throwing all my compost out there, and I would even go dumpster diving, and I would pull out more veggies and stuff out of the dumpster and just throw it out back there, and they would convert all those nutrients into poop, and the poop would end up around the trees, and I just saw it as like almost like a bank, like a savings account, just bringing in nutrients and then having those animals, whether wild or domesticated, cycling those for us instead of even having to compost.
Wow. We are with Anthony Anderson from growparadise.com and rawmodel.com. We got to take a short break and we're going to be right back. If you're like me, chances are you've tried lots of different whey protein powders and different protein powders on the market. The two I like are Sun Warrior Protein and One World Whey. One is vegan and one is not, but One World Whey, I love it. It's 100% raw and grass-fed, coming from Amish farmers with healthy cows. It's incredible product. It's got about 25 grams of protein with each scoop, which is really, really high. It increases the glutathione levels in your body. It helps to eliminate heavy metals and toxins out of your body, as well as radioactive fallout from chemtrails. And it helps to decrease inflammation in the intestines, which helps with having healthy bowel movements. It builds lean muscle, and it's great for your skin and anti-aging. It increases your energy levels. It's really, really a great product, and it's not just for building muscle. It has so many benefits, and you can learn more about all the benefits of this incredible product at extremehealthradio.com/whey, WHEY, and it's put together by Synergistic Nutrition, and One World Whey is the product name. I highly recommend checking it out. If you are interested in buying it, please consider doing it through us. We'll get a little commission and you will see what I'm talking about. You're going to be hooked and addicted to this stuff. So consider this product as part of your daily protocol. Maybe put it in your smoothies, and just, it's really, really a great product. So thanks for listening, and let's get back to this interview. All right, we are with Anthony Anderson from growparadise.com. Anthony, I wanted to ask you, where's a good place for people to buy seeds, and what are some good ways for people to store seeds?
I think a cool... I'll always give a shout out for Daniel Vitalis. They've got a really great seed kit for like a whole big thing. It's a big jar of all these different seeds, and it's a really cool blend. I would also say Horizon Herbs. Horizon Herbs is awesome. They have so many cool ones, like really good medicinals, stuff that we hear people talking about, like it's in the superfood realm, and yeah, you can grow it yourself. I would check out Horizon Herbs. They're awesome.
Wow. So what are some good ways, like if you wanted to store seeds, how do you store them? Do you keep them just cold and dark?
I think just keep in the fridge. Keep them in the fridge up by the butter and in the trays there. Have like a little tin, one of those cool little tea tins or like a little coffee tin, and just have rolled up in there. You can even put, because sometimes they come in those paper things and they get all raggedy and they take up space, and you can just put them in little Ziploc baggies and then just write on them with a Sharpie, just write on it what it is, and then put them in a little tin, and that it's much more clean and organized, and you actually end up using it, because sometimes those paper ones, they just get moldy, and I've lost a lot of seeds from that.
So you're in France right now, I believe, right?
Yes, I'm in Paris, France.
And so do you work with people, like if someone wants to contact you for some information about, how to set up their own backyard garden, do you work with people like that?
Yes, I do Skype consultations, and I do phone, even in person if it's ever possible. I've done all three, but usually it's Skype.
Okay. And you'll walk someone through, someone might tell you what their goals are, what they want to do in their land, and you'll just kind of put together some kind of plan that will work for them?
We talk about everything. We talk about their climate, and even if they can give me their address, and I can go on Google Maps or Bing Maps and look at their layout and see what they've got right now. It's kind of a funny thing that we can do, but I'll see what their trees look like, and if they have open space for maybe some water catchment, and we'll talk about some good ideas for trees and some plants that they might not know about, and plants that deer don't like, and we'll just go over it. Yeah, I started off always talking about food. I would always do the food consultations and food and exercise consultations because of Raw Model, but I really love talking about the permaculture. And if like a young parent or if just someone really wants to take control of their life and do a food forest or do a permaculture farm, I just love talking about it, really, and just helping them and getting them started with the right ideas. And especially, I've learned so many things because of the mistakes that I've made. I've been at this for about 7 years now, and it's been, you learn so much. Despite all the info online, there's always going to be mistakes that you make in person, because when you do it in person, you learn. And Yeah, I wish I would have known some stuff that I knew that I know. It saves a lot of money just buying from the right nurseries online, and knowing, because I bought fruit trees from a nursery in Georgia, and they sell fruit trees that are hardy to zone 4. And in Minnesota, it's zone 4, like certain apple trees and nut trees. But I ordered them, and every tree except one died, and I probably ordered $1,000 worth of trees. And I realized that these trees had been living in Georgia, Georgia winters for maybe 3 years, 4 years. And then they get a Minnesota winter, and I think it just knocked them out. And so I realize now I only buy from nurseries that are up in the north, and these trees are used to it. The nursery managers know, and I really recommend to do the earthworks, all the stuff with the bobcats, and if you ever need to make like a pond or big pathways or driveways, do it early, so you don't have to dig up your trees and squish all the plants that are growing. And really, also buy big trees early on if you can afford it, especially for your core garden area around the home. Invest in larger trees because you're going to get the fruit so much faster anyways. The money will come back, and you can really get an established garden that's going to, most importantly, impress people. And they will also do the same thing because they're going to see fruit all over your trees the first year instead of little twigs coming out,
Wow, so
we want mom and dad and the neighbors into this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have a place online to buy some of those more mature trees that people could go onto and take a look at?
Absolutely. I use two. I buy most of my trees for the north. And if you live in the south, you can buy these tropicals from that place called, the website is Tropical Fruit Nursery. It's Pine Island Nursery in Florida. It's in the Miami area, and they ship their trees. Wow. And I've been there, and for people like me and you, all of us, it's like Disneyland. I mean, they have so many different fruit trees, and a lot of them are really large because, they have these trees and they've planted them for real. So massive avocados and all these really cool ones. And I bought maybe like 5 or 6 trees, and I bought a cacao, and I bought a soursop, and it's like your biggest dream, if you're into that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So what's the website on that one?
I think it's Tropical Fruit Nursery. If you Google Pine Island Nursery, it should be. It'll come up right away. Pine Island. They've got a great selection. Nice. I mean, it's really amazing. One of the best things you can buy from them is their miracle fruit. I don't know if you've heard of that one, the miracle fruit. It's a native of West Africa. It's a shade plant, likes acidic soil, and it puts out that little red fruit that if you get the juices on your tongue, something changes with the proteins, and anything that's sour will taste incredibly sweet. So you can drink pure lemon juice or pure lime or anything, and it doesn't taste like orange juice. It tastes like liquid sugar.
Wow, that's crazy.
Or even like beer or a lot of stuff. Yeah, a lot of funny things. Wow. And it's incredibly sweet. It's shocking. The miracle fruit. Yeah, they sell.
You know what I would like to be able to grow are the noni trees.
Oh yeah, you could. I mean, you're in California. You could totally do it.
Is that possible? I thought they didn't allow that. Or
no, I don't think so. No, they'll ship you a noni.
Wow, that would be amazing because that fruit is pretty magical, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen it growing in Puerto Rico and Bali and also Hawaii, but I think you might have to keep it in a container and bring it inside in the winter. It depends how far south you are, but...
Wow. So with your Grow Paradise, now what is the mission and what kind of work are you doing? Because I know you're kind of traveling all over the world. You're in Brazil and South Africa, and now you're in France. And so is this all with Grow Paradise? And what's the kind of mission there?
Okay. Oh, actually, just in case so I don't forget, I'll mention the 2 other nurseries for northern varieties just before I forget. If anyone's like, I didn't mention anything for the north. Google St. Lawrence Nursery. St. Lawrence Nursery, they're in northern New York State. And then also One Green World, onegreenworld.com. And they're in Oregon. There's also, there's another one, but those 2 are especially my favorites. One Green World and St. Lawrence Nursery.
Onegreenworld.com, right?
greenworld.com. St. Lawrence has a funny website name, but if you just Google St. Lawrence Nursery, like the river, St. Lawrence River.
Excellent.
So the vision with Grow Paradise, it's been overall in the past 5 years, just the same thing that I've been talking about, just trying to get people, just helping people to, find a path that can, liberate them. I'm not acting like I'm some kind of savior or anything, but I feel like I've stumbled across a lot of good things that make life a lot more easy. I mean, really, like it doesn't have to be so complicated. And especially if we get onto this path when we're young, we're going to be cruising by the time we're in our 40s. For sure. So that's been the whole mission. And with Grow Paradise, I came over here. I was actually hired by an organic European importer of superfoods, Tea Sources Europe. And the owner of the company, she was looking to release a new brand, and she wanted to hire a male and a female. And she went online and she was looking and she found the raw model site. And she said, oh, this guy's interesting. He's actually into organics. And she had a hard time finding any other models that were kind of talking about organic food. And I figured by now there must have been other people, but she said there really wasn't. And so she sent me an email, and over a couple months we worked out a schedule, and she flew everyone over, and we did a photo shoot, and we shot some stuff for maybe like 3 days. And so during that time we realized how much we had in common. The overall mission, of her was to really bring the price of organics to the same level as the price of conventional. So it was just a no-brainer for people. She's really trying to make the price accessible by sourcing directly from the farms, going to Inner Mongolia or going to Colombia or Turkey and getting the direct price. So she's not buying from the traders, or she's getting the direct price and then selling it to companies that private label. Such as, a company, for instance, not this company, for example, like if Sun Food, they would buy the ton and then they would put it in their package and put their sticker on it. So she was selling to people like that. But she wanted to start doing another thing, and we started talking about Grow Paradise, and she really saw the connection and the possibility that we could be doing some projects together. I've been doing some projects on my own, just self-funding, with getting some funds as well from people from the site and sending me small donations, and super thankful for that. But overall, mostly it's been just me self-funding it, buying trees, traveling, going to these places. I was in South Africa and bought a bunch of trees for this community, and we just planted it and we filmed it, and it was so simple. We didn't have to ask anyone's permission or any red tape. We just went to the nursery, bought the trees. We weren't trying to get trees for free or anything. I just bought them. They weren't that expensive. Bought the trees, and we just planted them. Mulched them really nice, and the kids planted them. We filmed it. It was so easy. Wow. And it just made me realize, like, why do people have to make it so complicated? Trying to raise funds, and I was like, this should just be what we're up to. So with Tea Sources, they really see the connection, and they want to just really focus on organics, and they've been helping the farmers transition to organics and purchase more property and more organic fertilizers and all these things, so they can mineralize the soil. So there was really a collaboration in store.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. We just had to cut out for natural news, but we can keep talking. So now you're in France, and you're going to be there for a while, continuing that work?
I see myself being here for quite a while. I really enjoy it here. I enjoy the lifestyle. I'm working in a suburban garden, as well as we're leasing some property in western France, in the northwest near Brittany. And it could be large, it could be small. It depends on how much the farmer that we're leasing it from wants to do. I want to show him the video, The Man Who Planted Trees, on YouTube, because it's originally in French, and it's all about this farmer, or this he was actually a goat. He was a herdsman. He was a shepherd, and he planted, oh gosh, the number is even uncountable, but the size of the forest ended up being 20 kilometers by 15 kilometers over the course of maybe 30 or 40 years. He would just take his sheep out every day, his goats out, and just plant oak trees and birch trees and all sorts of things. And within the course of a few decades, ignoring World War I, ignoring World War II, just going about his mission, just planting trees. he created a forest, and all the spring water came back. The people were able to live in the area again, where it was once deserted because of coal. They were cutting down all the trees for coal, so there was no more water. It was constantly windy, and now people were able to live in that area again. It was now like it was a paradise garden. So I would love for that farmer to see that video and maybe get that bug, and maybe we can take it even further. But for now, it's a 5-bedroom house in the countryside with a garden. There's already fruit trees there, but we can always do more. I like to plug in some stuff like along the edges and put in some nitrogen fixers. And it's a 3-year contract, so I'm able to do quite a lot with the property, I think, by the time we leave.
Oh my gosh. So you're going to be there for 3 years. That's crazy.
The contract is 3 years. I definitely have every intention of staying, of course. Wow. But we'll be going to, the projects are really going to be expanding in 2013. This property in New York as well. And I was just about to start doing a project in Harlem, planting container fruit trees at this school. And I ended up coming to France, and I wasn't able to get it in with the schedule. And it was summertime anyways. So I still have the connections with that school. So if I can get back to New York, we can do that project as well. And really, if anyone's interested in doing a project together, I'm always open to it. I'm in Europe right now, but I'm planning to come to the United States again in January. And I'll likely be in Hawaii doing some retreats, and we'll be planting a lot of fruit trees. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on.
Wow. If you're ever in California, let me know, because I'm just south of LA, so that'd be great.
I think it's going to happen. I really do. I think if Hawaii's going to happen, Los Angeles will surely be in the mix.
Wow. Sounds like you're just setting up just an amazing life and just able to live your dream. And, that's what we need everyone doing, right? Instead of sitting behind a desk all day and, pushing papers around, I think it's important for people to, do what you're doing and live what their passion is.
Yeah, and it can be a fast transition or a slow transition. I mean, really, I'm on the computer a lot during the daytime as well, and I don't have to go into the office. But I was thinking about my life, and it's very simple, Like for me, a fun thing to do is go for a walk and pick seeds. Because it's fall, it's fall right now in France, and there's a lot of seeds everywhere from trees and flowers. They put out all the seed clusters. And one of my favorite things to do is just go and pick seeds, and other people might go to a movie or I enjoy that too, or like a Broadway show or something, but those things are also very expensive. So in a way, I don't know, my life is super simple, and I don't mind the simplicity, and I get the joys out of the small stuff. And then because of that, it's like everything is good. And I'm really grateful for everything, and I wake up every day, and I think it's one of the best things a person can do, even beyond the food choices, just to wake up every day and just for even 1 minute, just think about how lucky they are even to be able to have legs to walk on, or eyes to see with, or parents that are alive. And, there's so many things that we can be happy about, and much more than things to be sad about. So if we can just get that into our vibration every day, things will quickly change, I feel. And then once you start planting all those trees and you get that love, I think the plants really give some affection back to us in a way that people might not feel at first, but it's there. And then before you know it, it's like a relationship. And if it's fruit trees or berry bushes, it's a long-term relationship. And there's a great book called The Secret Life of Plants. And you can also see some clips on YouTube, but they did studies back in the 60s and 70s, and I'm sure they're still doing them now, where they hooked up a lie detector test or a polygraph. It's the same thing, polygraph, to a plant leaf. And they figured out that the plant could actually read minds. You have to watch this on YouTube. It sounds very far out there, but this book and these videos completely changed my whole reality, where I realized that plants are actually conscious somehow. They're sentient. They're conscious. They know not even that we're around and that we're looking at them, but what we're thinking. And that sounds so far out, but it seems like the studies, they really prove it.
Wow.
The Secret Life of Plants.
Wow, that's just so amazing. Wow. So I would encourage everyone to follow Anthony on Facebook from his website, either growparadise.com or rawmodel.com. He posts a lot of great stuff on there, and it's really informative stuff. So, Anthony, would you mind holding on while I close out the show?
Not a problem, man. No problem. Oh, can I say one more thing really quick?
Sure.
We're doing a seed giveaway. We're going to be doing this quite a lot because we've been traveling, and I like to collect seeds from all over. And I bring some back. We actually have wild black goji berry seeds. They're not cultivated. They grow like on the sides of the roads, and they have a lot of thorns, and the people pick them, but they're quite expensive. But we have the seeds from the berries, and we're doing giveaways. So if we're trying to build likes on Facebook, so if we can get likes on Grow Paradise and Tea Sources Europe, we're going to give away at least 10, maybe 15 packs of that. And I'm picking black locust seeds as well. So that would be super helpful. Thanks.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Yeah, I will link all this stuff up on the show page. That's so great.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Anthony, for being on. Let me just close out the show.
Yeah, it's an honor, everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's edition of Extreme Health Radio. What an awesome interview. That was so great. It just makes you want to go out and plant some seeds and, start your own food forest. It's pretty darn motivating. I'd highly encourage you to connect up with Anthony, follow him on Facebook, and utilize his knowledge and listen to him. And he's got a lot of great stuff going on. So thank you again for joining us. If you liked this show, please do us a favor and like us on Facebook as well. And also like this show page. It's extremehealthradio.com/32. And just to let you know, we are 100% listener supported. So any donations that you might be able to give, even if it's just $1, would be so gratefully appreciated. So I would appreciate that. If you can't, though, no big deal. Just learn as much as you can and perhaps just pass the show on to your friends, and that will be enough. And also, we have a store as well on our website with lots of great products, digital products as well as physical products like blenders and rebounders and programs and courses. So check out our store, and thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.